a whole lot of more tactical aspects that actually we forget about. But he's right that this is a debate about grand strategy, and that of what was once the Soviet Union, broken up now, and is Russia. I just want to dwell, to begin with, though, in line with my honourable friend from Bradford South, who, with me, attended this remarkable and worked with a remarkable charity, which its name is Siobhan's Trust. And interestingly, it's run, and I have to say, I know we're not supposed to, but the man that set it up and runs it is David Fox-Pitt, and he is sitting in the gallery right now. And I have to say that he is an epitome of what is very best about this United Kingdom. When all the refugees were pouring across the border and lost in the middle of Ukraine, having been struck, they upped sticks from where they were in Scotland with their trucks, and they just headed straight for the border to try and provide food and sustenance for those people. They got there weeks ahead of Oxfam and all the rest, and then they crossed the border because they realized there were more refugees in Ukraine than were coming out, and raised the money themselves, got companies like Dr. Urtica from Germany and Italian pizza companies. They got their trucks with the pizza ovens on them, and they now go to places as close as maybe a mile or so from the Russian border. In fact, quite recently, they had gone into Kherson just after it was liberated and fed them there, and it was in there that they actually came under shell fire. And I suspect it was because the Russians knew that they were there and what they were doing. They feed, as my honourable friend said, 4,000 people who are dispossessed, living in freezing cold conditions, often with no heating, no hot water, sometimes no water at all, and certainly no electricity. And the one high spot of their day will be the arrival of the trucks from Siobhan's Trust, led by wonderfully eccentric British people dressed in Ukrainian kilts. Now, the Ukrainians didn't know they had a kilt until Siobhan's Trust arrived in Ukraine, but now they have a national dress. And I hope this becomes something that's worn on the fashion catwalks of Europe to celebrate that. I know that I am not a fashion icon, but nevertheless, I would be prepared to wear it. And I want to say, therefore, that the beauty of this is all the work that they do, we forget about this bit. And when we were over there, as my friend said, when we were over there, you sometimes get into the grand strategy, but when you're there, you realize what this really means when we talk about grand strategy. It means seeing the destroyed buildings, blocks of flats that had people living in them when the rockets hit. It means being with the soldiers when they have to clear up the dead bodies in villages that have been shelled and rocketed. It means never being able to come off a single-track path because they have strewn anti-personnel mines all over the fields and the houses in the hope that you will enter them. This is what it really means. It means this barbaric, dictatorial, fascist crook called Putin has wrought such devastation and damage on ordinary people, whose only lives were pretty poor in the first instance. As one of the Ukrainian guides said to us, he said, the thing you don't understand is that we don't have and have never had the kind of support and money that you have. And when you look at our villages that are devastated, you see pretty low-standard villages, he said. But these, what happens is the Russians have moved all their troops that they've got from the east of Russia, where the living standards are even lower by a long way. And for them, this is Manhattan. And they rob every single house of everything that's in it. And that which they can't rob, they rape. And he said they use rape as a tool of war and a tool of suppression. And he said, we have to know, that is why we evacuated so many of our women and children from these villages, because we knew what was going to happen to them if and when the Russians came. And as my honourable friend said, we then went on to visit the military hospital in Kharkiv. It's a very sobering visit. They get rocketed at least 2 or 3 times a week. They get hit, it explodes around them, but they carry on the work that they're doing. And what's interesting, they said to me, please, can you go back and tell your government that we need armoured ambulances desperately because we cannot get the wounded to the hospitals quickly enough, and we need that more than almost anything else. The second thing we need, they said, we desperately need help in terms of paramedics to stabilize these people before they actually get into the ambulances. He said, you cannot understand that difference it makes to saving their lives or not, and we just don't have enough. And they said if only Britain could lead the West to try and give some of those people to educate and train paramedics for us urgently, that would save more lives. And the third area, they said, and this is in line with my honourable friend, they said that the problem is now that so many of our soldiers are committing suicide because they cannot cope with the terrible devastation, mental breakdown that comes from combat stress. And they said, you and America are the two countries that probably know the most about this because of Afghanistan and Iraq. Can we not desperately have some help from the UK to be able to help educate and train some of our mental health specialists in how to deal with this? It's a huge problem. By the way, it's a huge problem in America, and it's a problem here in the UK. And I know my honourable friend has helped us get in touch with combat stress, but I will give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank the right honourable gentleman. And just on that point, I'm really interested to understand from his perspective, and given his experience in politics, what he thinks the UK and other countries can be providing beyond what he just described in humanitarian but actual infrastructure support to the people of Ukraine.
Well, there's a huge amount that can be provided from what are essentially wealthy nations. We are wealthy nations, and when we compare ourselves to where Ukraine is, we are very wealthy, and it's just a determination of what we want to do. So I will say that they desperately need arms, they definitely need supplies of ammunition, they desperately need weapons. That's not a question. But they also need that other bit, which is about humanity, which is helping them survive in all these areas. The brave men and women that are fighting on the front deserve all the support they can get. But the people behind who have been devastated and shelled and have no homes, this is the other bit that goes missing when we debate these things. And we need to find a way to help them as well. So I beg the government to talk to their counterparts in Ukraine and find a way to get the rest of Western Europe to supply many of these things that they require, which don't have a gun on them, but actually will save many, many lives if they are provided. I want to briefly, and I'm going to, taking record of what the Deputy Speaker has said, I just want to say something also, which is all of this stuff I completely agree with, which is that Russia's grand strategy is to expand. They've never got over losing the land that they held in the Soviet Union. They want it back. They've made it absolutely clear about that. Strangely enough, countries in the West, Germany is a good example of it, have failed to recognize the real threat of becoming addicted to something that's supplied by a country as volatile and as ill-led as this. And I just come back to a point that that Nord Stream 2 pipeline, how in heaven's name did the rest of Europe just allow that to happen? How in heaven's name did they allow Germany to bully them into believing it was none of their business? And, you know, all of us, every country takes a share of this. It should never have been allowed to be built, and I don't exclude my own in this regard. It showed a sign to Russia that, addicted as they were, they would never do anything if Russia. That was as important as actually supplying them with weapons, because Russia then saw us and said, you know what, they put money first and energy second, and that's from us. They'll never come and stop us. So in reality, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is our war. We cannot forget that this is our war. It's as much as if we were standing in the front line with the Ukrainians. We have to be there with them in spirit, and we have to give them the weapons because they must win this war. And the reality for all of us, the thing that haunts me now more than anything else from that visit, is the one phrase that they use, which is, please don't forget us. Please don't forget us. We are fighting for our freedom and our lives, and we are worried that you are getting bored of what is going on over here. Please do not forget us. All I simply say in the House today is, we must not forget them. We must be with them. This is our war. We must win it. Slava Ukraine, Heroyam Slava.
Thank you, Ford.